what is the central principle of the Torah? Many would answer with the view of Rabbi Akiva that the central principle is love. Rabbi Akiva teaches that v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love your neighbor as yourself. This is the central principle of the Torah. However, there is a different view presented by Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, who finds the central principle as connected to a verse in our Parsha, Parashat Pinchas. In Hebrew, the verse reads, Et ha-keves echad taseh baboker, v'et ha-keves hasheni taseh ben harbayim. And on that verse, Rabbi Shimon says, Ze klal gadol b'Torah. Meaning, the verse says that you will offer a sheep in the morning in the temple, and you will offer a second sheep in the afternoon in the temple. This, Rabbi Shimon says, is the central principle of the Torah. Now, many might feel that Rabbi Akiva's approach, the love, is more inspiring than the sheep of Rabbi Shimon. Therefore, I see it necessary to explain why those sheep are so important. I believe that Rabbi Shimon is not coming to teach us about the significance of offerings in the temple. Rather, he's coming to teach us a basic principle about life itself. That offering that he related to, the offering of 2 sheep every single day in the temple, is called the korban Tamid. The Tamid is the Hebrew word that means always or constant. The constant offering in the temple. And I believe this is what he's coming to teach us. How significant in life is for us to have the ability to be consistent, to be constant in those matters that we devote our efforts. And from the word tamid comes the Hebrew word HatMada, which relates to being persistent and consistent in your efforts. So I would like to talk today about why is it that tamid and HatMada are the central principles of the Torah, of life. And for so many people who are stuck for so many different ways, the remedy for them is to learn all about HatMada. In our times, there's a growing popularity of spirituality. But my impression is that many seek the realm of spirituality to find answers beyond what the material world is able to answer to their needs. Many seek, but very few achieve what they're seeking. And I think one of the major factors in why so few people achieve what they're looking for, it's not necessarily that the approaches they take are problematic, but rather the major problem is their lack of consistency, their lack of hatmada, their lack of tamid. This is what prevents them to getting where they want to be. I had a friend who, for him, meditation was very significant to his life. He was chozer b'tshuva, he came to study in our yeshiva, but he continued to devote time every day for meditation. Now, I saw that there's a retreat for 10 days that all day you focus on that form of meditation, and seeing how much the meditation helped my friend, I asked him advice. Would he recommend me to somehow find a way to go for 10 days and learn the techniques that he uses? But I added, but afterwards when I come back, my life is so busy, I don't have time to spend an hour a day doing what you do. When he heard that, he told me that if I go, you'll have a fascinating experience. But if you're not going to commit yourself to working on this day in, day out, that's all it'll be, a fascinating experience. But to change, and if that's to truly change and become something more than you are, if you're not going to devote yourself to it, it's not going to happen. And then he added that to get to the water, you have to dig deep. And what's the problem with so many people? They dig a little bit here, a little bit there, and then they say, I've tried everything, and I haven't made it to the water. But the reason why they haven't made it to the water is exactly because they've tried everything. And you don't realize the truth, that if you want to get to the water, you have to dig deep. You have to find what is the path that you want to be devoted to, and devote yourself to that path, and that's how you'll get to where you should be going. And this is reminiscent of something I once mentioned from a conversation with Vijayananda, the 92 head of a major ashram in India, that he said that one thing he's learned from life is that there's more than one way to get to the top of the mountain. However, if people switch paths in the middle, or keeps going from path to path, they'll never make it to the top. And therefore you have to find what's your path, and be consistent, and devote to the path based on your tradition, and that's how you will grow and get where you should be going. There's a book that in Israel was a major bestseller called Mikimi, in which a woman was very famous as on television, as an actress. She ultimately was Chozeret B'Tshuva, became a Breslov Chassid, and in her novels she shares the experiences and the process she went through for choosing ultimately the path that she took. And I once heard her discuss, I think not in the context of the book, of what brought her to be Chozer B'Tshuva, feeling that at a young age she achieved everything that the secular world had to offer. She had money, she had beauty, she had fame, but she felt that so much was missing, and that what underlied the changes in her life. But in the process she was going through, her mother said, why be so extreme? We're the same. We're both interested in spirituality and meaning for life and this and that. Why can't you be like me, who doesn't go overboard about these things? And then she looks at her mother and realizes that that's exactly why she has to go overboard. Because her mother indeed goes every week at some other sort of class in Reiki or yoga or meditation or this or that. She has a lot of extra time on her hands, a lot of extra money on her hands, and to solve her problem with boredom, she does all these different things. But that's not what she's looking for. She's looking for a deep, fundamental change in her life. And for that to happen, it's not a little of this and a little of that. It's HatMada, it's Tamid, it's devoting yourself to a path, and like that, offering in the temple, day in, day out. A sheep in the morning, sheep in the afternoon, today, tomorrow, the next day. That's how ultimately she'll achieve what she was looking for. Maybe one last story on this. They tell the way that Kung Fu was developed. Someone went to a place to learn the martial arts, and when he arrived, they put him into a pool of water to his neck. And day in, day out, they told him, take your hands and tread the water. Left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. He kept doing that, kept waiting for when will they tell him the secrets of the martial arts. After a few months, he decided they're never going to share with him the secrets of the martial arts. So in frustration, he left, he went home. And when his family asked, what did he learn? In frustration, he says, I didn't do anything over there. The whole day, I just took my arms, right hand here, left hand like this. And when his right hand hit the table smattered into thousands of pieces. So sometimes doing the little things in life, but being consistent in them, ultimately could lead to big changes in life. But this is so hard. There's a statement that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov often quotes, that of the Mechilta, that Kol Hatchalot Kashot. all the beginnings are hard. But I've had students that pointed out that the opposite is also true. All the beginnings are easy. It's often easy to begin. It's persevering. That's what's difficult. So the question is, so how can we find in our lives that are so busy and so full an ability to find time to dedicate ourselves on a consistent basis to those to ways in order for spiritual growth? The answer is right under our noses. And this again is an insight that was best put by a friend of mine in India. When I was in Dharamsala, I was with Yaron, who told me that the coming Shabbat would be the first Shabbat that he decided that he's gonna keep it from beginning to end. Yaron was an Israeli who spent many years in many monasteries of different religions, but then thank God he started coming back to Judaism, and I was with him that special Shabbat that he said this Shabbat he wants to keep it till all the way through. But during the morning, there were already some cracks were developing. When he asked me, is it true that the reason why you shouldn't play musical instruments on Shabbos is because if they break down, maybe you'll come to fix them? And from the question, I realized that if that's the reason, he's already Yaron will decide that you could keep full Shabbos and play musical instruments because by me, I'm not going to fix anything on Shabbat. So for me, that's not connected to Shabbat. But then I explained to him that so many of the laws of Shabbat, beyond some of the technical reasons, they're more deep-rooted reasons about how these different laws create a special atmosphere. How all the things that we don't do on Shabbat, the non-doing, how it leads to the being, and what that special atmosphere is all about. When hearing that, he said, wow, it's like going on a Shabbos, it's like every single week you're on a weekly retreat to do Vipassana. His realization that the fact that Judaism, the Torah, the mitzvot, Shabbat and the Chagim, we have a set weekly, daily schedule, weekly schedule, yearly schedule, we have things built in. This allows us for a constant path of growth in serving God, in spiritual growth. Again, it's so hard if we had to find time to devote ourselves for 25 hours for a very strict regime of spirituality. At most 2 or 3 times a year, maybe we'd find some time to do that. But when it's built in the framework of our lives, as the Shabbat is, or so many other mitzvot in the same way, it's there. We could still miss it. We could still blow it. We could still have an empty experience or work relating to each of these different parts of our week. But those who do wish to grow in the service of God, in spirituality, all these mitzvot are in place to help us grow. Let me conclude with to connect the two great principles, that of Tamid and that of Ava, of love. And because these two principles are connected. Often the way that one can express that the love is authentic is the ability to be persistent, to be constant in that love. When love is not of the other but of yourself, of your own personal egoistic needs, then sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. Sometimes I want it, sometimes it's not appropriate. When there's true love for the other, then you will be able to be consistent in that love. And let me end with a story of a student of mine who, when he was in the army, he was in an elite unit that had very difficult training. And one day he called me telling me how troubled he felt that at the end of the day, when he comes back exhausted from the training, he prays Tfilat Arvit. But he says, but it's so hard to have any kavanah. It's so hard for me to put my heart into the words because I'm so tired. But then I try to help him see the power of his prayer. That maybe he doesn't put his heart into the particular meaning of each of the words. But that very fact, the Talmud teaches us that prayer is a parallel or replacement for the Korban Tamid that was in the Beit HaMikdash that we no longer have. And his decision, day in, day out, even when he's exhausted, even when all he wants to do is to go into bed and go to sleep, nevertheless, he's continuous in his commitment, his tamid, and makes that decision to stand up and pray to God. That in itself is a powerful expression of his loyalty, devotion, and love of God. Shabbat Shalom.